Once upon a time, in ancient Greece, there's a civilization ruled by two kings. They were called Sparta. Today, it's known as Honkai Star Rail because Bronya and Tingyun are not going anywhere. However, we do have a newcomer, and no, I didn't forget about Asta or Yukong. I'm just really excited for new content. Hanya is our newest 4-star physical harmony unit, and she finally brings something new to the table. By the end of this guide, I'm going to help you build her for the best possible results. If you find any of this info helpful, do consider dropping a like and sub. And without further ado, let's get started. Let's quickly go over her kit to understand what she primarily does. She has a combat entry technique that applies her skills debuff burden to a random enemy. It's not the highest priority technique, but it's still worth using since burden is quite powerful. For reference, we're going to be using numbers at trace level 10. Her skill deals 240% physical damage to a single enemy and then applies burden to that target. When enemies with burden are hit twice by any allies' basic skill or alts, you'll recover a skill point. Burden can only be applied to one target and it's removed once it's triggered 2 times. Thanks to her talent, an enemy with burden will take 30% increased damage when hit by an ally's basic skill or alts. Hanya's ult is a single target enhanced type ability that increases an ally's speed by 20% of Hanya's own speed. It also gives them a 60% attack bonus, and these last for 2 turns. There's quite a bit going on here, but she's pretty straightforward once you piece it all together. The goal with Hanya is to maintain as high of an uptime on her burden to not only recover skill points, but also for that team-wide vulnerability. You also want to be using her ult as often as possible, giving your main damage dealer that massive speed and attack bonus. Even though her ult costs 140, Hanya's got a unique advantage in that she can remain massively skill point positive even while spamming her skill. This brings us to the most important section of the video, her light cone options. You're going to see a summarized view of Hanya's energy requirements here while performing her optimal rotation of skill. Again, you really don't want to be using her basics because that'll mean you have downtime on her burden, which means less vulnerability and opportunity for more skill point recovery. So take advantage of her unique kit and spam those skills for more energy, damage, and toughness break. The great thing about Hanya is she's a harmony character, so you can just run cogs or memories of the past. You can see that at S5 and even S1, you'll easily achieve a 3-turn ult with an energy regen rope. These are the 2 light cones I'd recommend for most players, especially since cogs is so attainable as a 3-star. What's funny is there's actually good reason to use memories of the past since Hanya's going to be doing double the toughness damage that normal support characters would be doing. The light cone gives her a bit more break effect and can help her contribute a little more damage for the team. Now, her best option in most teams will be Bronya's signature, but the battle isn't over. You can see that at S1, you should be able to get a 3-turn ult if she gets hit once or triggers her A6 an additional time. If you do want to guarantee it though, you can just run Penacony or Von Whack. This light cone is of course really cracked and works perfectly with Hanya. Since her ult is used on an ally, you'll get an extra skill point with a 1 ult cooldown on that effect, and you can give the ally acting next a 30% damage bonus after using a skill, which you're going to be doing all the time. This means for optimal use, you'll want to speed tune Hanya to act right before your main damage dealer, and this isn't even that hard to do because once that ally is ulted, they'll get so much speed from Hanya. You also got the higher base stats, which is pretty important nowadays with enemies hitting harder, especially for harmony units since they're so squishy. Overall, this is her best light cone by a mile since it not only solves her energy requirements, but gives substantial buffs and even further bolsters your team's skill point economy. There are a couple alternatives that are powerful enough in their effects to be mentioned, but you can see that even with an energy regen rope, you're not guaranteed a 3-turn ult. Dance 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 is of course crazy strong and can often save you a cycle or 2 in Memory of Chaos. Planetary Rendezvous gives the entire team additional physical damage, which is great if you have a physical main damage dealer like Argenti. Aside from these 2, the rest of the Harmony light cones just aren't worth running over cogs or memories since you really want to be prioritizing her 3-turn ult rotation first and foremost. On that note, we gotta finish her build off with the right relics. She's actually quite flexible for gearing, though no matter which sets you choose, you'll want speed boots and an energy regen rope. We already talked about why energy regen is important, but really quick let's go over why you want speed boots, especially for Hanya. Her ult's flat speed bonus for an ally scales with her total current speed. She has 110 at base, and we add up all those guaranteed sources, you can see she sits at around 150. Now, you're more than likely going to have more than this since we aren't including speed substats, external speed buffs like 4-piece Hackerspace, Asta's ult, and others, but even at 150, you'll be giving 30 flat speed, which is more than an entire speed boots. Another way to visualize Hanya's ult is it's like giving an ally an extra speed boots and attack percent main stat relic, except quite a bit more in the actual total amount. That's pretty insane, but yeah, aside from speed giving her a bigger buff, it of course lets her take more actions, and I'd personally aim for that 161 speed breakpoint post relics. As for sets, of course 4-piece Hackerspace wins here. There's no real other option. It's even more valuable on Hanya. If it'll impact your speed tuning with, say, Bronya on the team, just go with the 2-piece and the other isn't as important. I'd probably go with the defense, damage reduction, or HP set as the second. For planar sets, you can either go for Von Whack or Penacony to hit a specific energy breakpoint as mentioned earlier. An example would be Bronya's Light Cone at S1, and if you're not looking for a breakpoint, Penacony can just be run specifically to give that 10% physical damage bonus. Otherwise, you can just go with the standard Fleet of the Ageless or Broken Keel. For main stats, go for an HP and or defense percent on the body and orb, try to get one of each, and then speed boots and energy regen rope. For substats, you want as much speed as possible, effect res if you need to hit 30% on Keel, but otherwise, tank stats like defense and HP percent are preferable. So I'm going to give you a quick rundown on her Eidolons, so she's perfectly good at E0. Luckily, they don't change her build at all, but they do increase her output. E1 advances Hanya's action forward by 15% after an ally with Hanya's ult defeats an enemy. Pretty solid considering that's your main carry usually, and you'll be proccing this a lot, though it can only happen once per Hanya's turn. E2 increases Hanya's speed by 20% after using a skill, so you can treat this as pretty much a permanent increase to her speed, which also increases the amount of speed that Hanya gives from her ult by about 4. When you combine this Eidolon with the previous one, you'll actually find Hanya taking 3 actions per cycle quite frequently. Her E4 pretty much ensures 100% uptime on her ult by extending its duration from 2 turns to 3. While this does sound good, even with Hanya's speed buff on that ally, especially thanks to E1 and E2, in the time that your main damage dealer takes 2 actions, Hanya can take 3. So in that sense, you've already got 100% uptime. Nonetheless, this Eidolon is still good, it's just not as crazy as you might think in practicality. Finally, E6 is a pretty straightforward one. Nothing special, the talent's damage boost on Burden is increased by 10%. Not amazing, but it is team-wide, so it's a bit more valuable. Honestly, I think Hanya is one of the most complete characters in the game to date at E0, and that's a really good thing considering how difficult it can be to get these newer 4 stars. So don't worry too much if you don't get her Eidolons, she's already great out of the box with not much power locked behind them. Given how loaded her kit is, Hanya thankfully is quite a universal support that can be slotted into really any team. There's no team that wouldn't appreciate her skill point generation, vulnerability, speed, and attack buffs for the main carry, but there are certain archetypes that work really well with her. Let's start with single hyper carries, and our newest 5-star limited DPS, Argenti, is a great example. Plus, being physical means you can run Penacony and even Planetary Rendezvous on Hanya if you want. Characters that also fit into the same role are Jingyuan, Himeko, and even Zila. She's great for Kafka and Dot characters too, giving them multiple sources of damage amplification, but the most intriguing teams are the ones that use a lot of skill points. We're looking at teams with heavy skill point consuming damage dealers in Imbiber Lune or Qingque, as well as certain supports like Bronya and builds like 2-turn alt Asta. Again, there's just so many possibilities that Hanya can honestly enable, and she can replace Tingyun, Bronya, or Asta in many of their existing teams already. Because of this, instead of me giving you some potential team templates, if you're looking to specifically use a character or team with Hanya, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to help as well as list some alternatives. With that being said, I think you can really see the value in Hanya. I'm very excited to use her and she's going to be great moving forward as well. I truly think she's a very strong character and one of the ones that you might be wishing you had. But that's pretty much it. I wanted to condense as much in-depth info as I could into this video without making it too long. Best of luck if you're pulling on any of the banners, and let me know how you did. If my voice sounds a bit different from usual, it's because I'm still recovering a bit from being sick, but I still want to get this and the Argenti guide out there. So thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Until next time.